Welcome back to Razmafzar TV. Hi, Beat. Nice to have you back on our channel.
Hello, manager. It's good to be here.
Thank you very much. Today we go back to Russian museums, and today we are having a very important, again, subject, and this is going to be Central Asian arms and armor. We talked about Scythian and also Persian, and now all from Russian museums we go to Central Asian. Some of these items we already talked with Bede about it,
Mm.
but because we decided to go through the whole Russian museums, what I have, I took pictures of. And so it's going to be a long journey. So today we are going first to start with Central Asian arms and armor. Please take a look at these sabers from Bukhara.
Yeah, see, they did beautiful. It's almost like a mosaic work with turquoise on the upper scabbard and, well, the two scabbards, the two top scabbards, and the hilt of the
Yes,
top sword. These swords are kind of like shashkas, but the hilt form is more like a slightly exaggerated card.
yes,
Um,
yes,
I've handled one. I've handled kyber knives that had similar hilts. And a kyber knife that's that long is almost a sword anyway,
yes,
and it's a good shape for controlling the blade and generally using it. Of course, there's no hand protection, but I think that suggests that, well, who knows? I mean, you watch Georgian dance, right, where they've got dancing with small shields and swords,
yes.
and they're using swords very similar to this, or like shashkas, and it's choreographed. So they're not trying to hit each other in the hands. But when you move that fast, there's a serious chance of injury, but they don't seem to have too many. So perhaps the process of the way they fence doesn't expose their hand as much. Maybe the shield is more defensive. You know more about using small shields and swords than I do. So perhaps the actual technique is more protective of the hand. Or maybe they don't get into long backwards and forwards fencing things. Maybe these swords are for riding past people and cutting them down, and there's not much fencing involved. It's even though these are made in the 19th century, and we've got relatively good records from then, there's still a lot of stuff that people never wrote down about what was happening in a battle because it either happened too fast or it was find in both Persian and European literature there is a sensitivity of not being too gory.
Yeah,
I mean, gory descriptions are usually kept for legal executions and things like that. That's when they start to talk about blood spurting and head being chopped off. I mean, the Shah Namal has quite a fair bit of descriptive imagery, but that's poetry, not a eyewitness account. I think people were a little bit more well mannered than we would be in the same situation.
yes.
I'm just looking at the design and the metalwork, even on the belt,
Mhm.
uh, all the metal fittings for the swords and daggers. It's really high quality.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. We are going
I
to have,
know they like it.
yeah,
Yeah,
better
go on.
picture. Let us take a look at this, as we know that they also use lots of or similar daggers like Persian Khanjar, and then they do have different decorations, which is very interesting.
Yeah, well, see, that looks like a standard Hanjar with a walrus ivory hilt that
Yes,
has then been decorated to the taste of Bukhara or
yes,
Samarkand or something like that. So
yes,
that they took existing designs, or maybe these are antique pieces to them and they were family pieces,
yes,
and they updated them to the style that was current at the time. Because,
yes,
uh, you know, uh, when you read about collecting amongst people in Central Asia, Afghanistan, Sindh province,
yes,
they're really big on collecting high quality blades.
yes, yes, absolutely.
And it would not be, maybe there's a chip in the grip maybe a bit of ivory has been broken off. And they said, oh, we'll fix this, but we've got to do both ends to make a united design. And who knows? It might be perfect under there. That might be a 17th century Qajar in 19th century mounts.
Yes, yes, absolutely. They have a this gilded silver mounts, and then look at all those stones, be.
Oh, they absolutely love turquoise, which
Yeah.
are the very small stones. Then we've got what look like either rubies or spinels
Yes,
and rough cut emeralds,
yes.
just cabochon cut. And then they make the mountings to match the shape of the stone rather than grind the stone to fit into the mountings. Everybody did that. So the bezels are uh, individually made.
Yes.
But look at the repoussé on the cover of the scabbard.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that beautiful work?
Magnificent. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, they definitely. And when you look at it, the mouth of the scabbard matches the base of the hilt, like they're kind of mirror forms. But
Mm.
interestingly, the jewels are reversed. So two red stones with a central green stone then becomes two green stones with a central red stone. So there's some kind of design,
Oh,
focus that the artists
yeah.
making these had.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how much if you ordered a Hunja, how much input the purchaser had into the decoration. You might just say, I want an ivory hilted Hunja with gold mounted or gold covered silver mounts or something, and then the jeweler and the knife maker get together and come up with the design. Or they might say, oh, I want one that looks like my father's.
Yes. That's true.
But the quality of the jewelry is very high.
Very high. Oh, we come back to those Bukhara
Oh,
sabers.
yeah.
Please take a look at them. Beautiful, huh?
So that there's inlay on the again the grip scales on the sword are walrus ivory. You can see the pattern in it,
Yeah.
even with all that inlay on it. It's got date, has it?
Yeah, it has date and it's also from the Quran. Nasru min Allahi wa fathun gharib. God help us in the upcoming victory from the Quran. Yes.
Look at how pretty the fittings on the belt are too. The metal
Yeah.
fittings.
No.
They're quite simple in design, but very very strong and effective.
Yeah. Very, very beautiful. Very
That
beautiful.
yeah, that kind of mosaic of turquoise is just so impressive.
So much
So,
work, huh?
huge amount of work, but I think in person, and you've seen it in person, so you know what I mean. This is really stunning
Yeah.
because it's like a mosaic, and turquoise isn't all the same color. So you get graduations in color. So when they were putting that together, they probably laid out all the little turquoise pieces and said, "We'll put that one there and that one there," and moved it around. And then they set them in the on the scabbard. See, they look like they're set in metal cloisons, like little wire frames that are soldered onto the base metal, and then they cut the turquoises to fit because that's really fine work.
Um, just for our viewers, because in case they ask me later, yeah, I mean, yeah, this the whole inscriptions because now it's upside down. I had to turn my hat. Is
Yeah,
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim in the name of God, the ever compassionate, ever merciful, and then Nasr min Allahi wa Fathun Gharib. God help us in the upcoming victory, and the Bashir al Mu'mineen, and give us good tidings. Yeah, that's all from the Quran. Yes.
yeah,
That's what it says. Yeah. Very beautiful, really, really beautiful.
yeah. It really is. I mean, this is again, this is male jewelry. This is people wearing this, and this is what the emir and his sons and cousins would be wearing. This is not what the average person would ever
No,
see.
yeah, yeah, of course.
Um,
Yes,
but it's really nicely done. Oh yeah, that belt.
yeah,
As a person who makes belts, I really appreciate a good belt,
yes.
and that's beautifully done. But look at the Niello work on the scabbard there. I mean, that's really high quality.
Really high
You'd
quality.
almost think that it was Caucasian work. I know they did yellow in Central Asia, but the kind of center of it was the
Yes.
Caucasus,
And
Kubachi, and
the good
places like
thing
that.
about these items are that they're all like royal gifts, and they all have certificates when they went to the Tsar inventory, right? So that's important to know,
Yeah,
right? These
yeah,
are
and
not in some, as we talked about it with Pete, these are not in some private collection. Someone bought it somewhere in an
yeah.
art market. It is not like that, right?
This is what the collectors call ultimate provenance. We know exactly when, we
Yeah,
know exactly where it came from, we know who gave it and
yeah,
who it was given to.
yeah.
This is pretty impressive when you look at it because for this doesn't tell us when the sword was made. I mean,
Yes.
that's the inscription on the sword blade or whatever. It tells you when the gift was made. It tells you when it was considered valuable.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important when you try and establish uh, when a particular style became popular. I'm sorry, I'm waving a glass around.
No
I,
problem.
I'm. It's very hot here, and staying hydrated is pretty important. Um, but yeah, you see, like you're looking at that style of Niello and inlay and enamel, because that's everything is on that scabbard, and you can say, right, well, when I see that on something else, I can relate it back to this. We know this was a gift in this year from this place to the Tsar, and I think that's really important. I think as well, collectors want to know when their object was made. They'd love to know who made it. They'd love to know who it belonged to. Here we know
Yes,
exactly.
exactly. So you see that this military style saber with a local blade, right?
Mm.
Very
But
interesting.
look how they've adapted the European design to be
Yeah. Do you
really Central
remember
Asian.
in military museums and also in my book Arms and Armor, there are many of them, when they adopted military sabers, European style, they all have
Mm.
crucible steel blades, but then the shape is unbelievable, huh?
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're modernizing, we're bringing ideas, and of course, you're bringing the good ideas and the bad ideas in together because you don't know which are which until you try them out. And there's something if you discard the cross guard and the knuckle guard on that, which are beautifully made, and just look at the shape of the hilt. That's quite an old design,
Yes.
say in Iran and Central Asia.
Yeah,
They've just updated it.
they
Um,
updated it. Yeah.
but I think the gold work is brilliant.
Yes, unbelievable.
Um, the blade is forged into the shape of a European saber blade, but as you say, they made it themselves out of woods because they like woods better.
Yes.
But yeah, beautiful.
Look at
And see, the
this.
great advantage of these is the fabric and stuff survives as well.
Yes.
And the other thing is, you might find a sword blade like this in the open market, but half the time the jewels have been prized out and sold separately, and it's not in this condition.
No.
So you look at that beautiful blue enamel on the where the quillion curves around at the back. Really intense blue. There's blue also in the pommel cap at the bottom of the pommel cap where it joins the grip.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a very carefully designed pattern. I think the pattern on the grip, the leaves and the flowers and the tendrils of vine and everything. This is really classical.
It has a date in it, but it's hard for me to decipher from this distance. I need to look at it later. And I think
Yeah.
Sharif, also the name of the maker is there. It's interesting.
Oh yeah. So
Very nice.
very very nicely done. Big carnelian in the knuckle guard.
Oh
They
yeah, that's
love carnelians in Central Asia. They were very popular.
yes. Okay, we
They're a
saw
beautiful
them.
stone.
Yeah. And now let's go
Oh,
hide
that
shield.
is a shield.
Yeah.
That's just such a brilliant design, isn't it? Every little piece of this is exhibiting a class of jewelry so that when you give a present like this to the Tsar, you're saying, we've got all these skilled craftsmen. Be nice to us. We'll give you more presents. But look at the workmanship on that. And again, probably carried by one of the emir's bodyguards.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and it's just showing off how good the material equipment we have. Uh,
yeah.
the
Some,
other view that with the shield not highlighted, um, the bow is quite long.
yeah,
Um, it it may be in the style of not a sin bow, but a variation on that,
yeah.
because it's not a chahar bow. It
No,
doesn't have four curves,
no.
but it's kind of like a stretched out version of a crab bow that's opened out. I think in the Moser collection there's a bow very much like this,
Mm,
um, and he collected that in the 19th century. But
mm,
again, see, this is part of a gift. The dates, the provenance are perfectly well known.
yes,
Very nice male shirt there.
yes. Very nice. We are going to see them hopefully in a close.
Excellent.
Okay, this is the bow. Maybe we can you can take
Yeah.
a look at that.
You
Still
see, it's
composites,
almost
right, Pete?
yeah. It's almost like a Ching bow, and it could be a gift to one of the emirs from the Chinese emperor, or it could be something that was captured in battle and then redecorated, uh, because that's also known.
Yes.
Um, but it's a long draw bow. I have in the Grayson collection there is effectively a Chahar Khan from Afghanistan, but it's as big as this. Normal Chahar Khan bows are only about that long, but I've seen ones that are really massive. Um, and Afghanistan and Central Asia, I mean, everything was moving backwards and forwards between these areas, and Khorasan to the west. So it's important to realize that there's a lot of influence going backwards and forwards. In fact, there's a famous Orientalist painting. I think it's a French painter, and it has two. Oh, it could be Russian actually. Has two guardsmen standing outside one of the beautiful tiled mosques in Samarkand, and they've actually got bows this shape, but they are clearly Manchu bows from China. So there was to and fro. I think in general the bows were smaller, but in the 19th century, the advantage that the Manchu bows had was while they weren't as long range as the smaller bows, they were very precise. They were very accurate. So if you're going to actually use them in battle or hunting, they were a very good bow. They wouldn't shoot an arrow as far, but within their range, they would be very accurate. And this is it's the difference between, say, when they were using um, muskets and bows. The musket was the equivalent of the rifle, and the bow was the equivalent of the pistol. But the difference is bows are much more accurate than pistols are.
Yes.
So, if you practice, of course. So, therefore, for quite a long time, bows survived as a sidearm, even when firearms were generally known. But in areas where they knew how to make them,
Yes.
composite bows. I mean, oh, this is a very nice Pishkats. That style I've seen from Iran, the very straight blade with the
Yeah,
T section,
we have this one.
as well as Afghanistan. They're popular there into parts of northern India. It's just a very practical fighting knife for the type of fighting they did, and would be terribly effective against people wearing even strong mail,
Yeah,
because the T section blade just pops mail rings like they weren't there.
very strong.
And again, look at the incredibly good embossing on the scabbard cover.
Yeah,
I mean,
incredible,
this is
incredible.
who would think that in the 19th century, and this may be a bit earlier, this could be late 18th century, but it looks 19th century, that people still had this level of skill. Because it's very common for Western historians to talk about the declining Central Asian states and the decline of Iran. But some things declined, but other things didn't. And
Oh,
art often was progressing still. Because as long as there's patrons to pay the artists will keep developing their art. It's when there are no patrons that art tends to disappear.
I think, we talked about it multiple times on this channel, Beat. Given the current events, what's going on in the world, and all this false reporting going on, what do we expect how they reported in the 18th, 19th century, right? Honestly.
Yeah, well, this is it. If you read European accounts of Chinese or Persian histories, they always discount them. Oh, there couldn't have been that many people. They couldn't have done this. They couldn't have done whatever. And of course, the reason they said that was, well, there were several reasons. The first reason is they don't want to make out these guys were very efficient or knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
They're not as civilized as we are. That was their first statement.
Yeah.
The second one was, oh, we don't really understand what they were doing. It's very folkloric. you
Yes.
know, they're
Yes.
very dismissive.
Yes.
And the third one is we don't want to make out that they're competent because then how do we explain the fact that we're taking over their countries?
Yeah. Exactly.
Because if they're competent, they don't need us.
Yes. Yes.
And so therefore you've got to make out, and particularly in that late, from the mid 19th century to the end of the 19th century, where there was a strong feeling that Europeans were, and I use quotes here, civilizing the natives, whereas the natives are often more civilized than the people trying to civilize them. It was just different, and that was the problem. Not everybody, not all scholars were blinkered in their view of these things. And you see several scholars absolutely impressed by the workmanship of things like this, or by the way governments in these remote and, by this stage, poor countries managed to get things to work at all.
Yes.
Because when Europeans put in governments, things didn't get better necessarily. Sometimes they did. Maybe they improved the plumbing. but, oh, that's a lovely sword.
Yeah. Very much so.
Look at so the hilt is a combination of one of those Persian hilts with the dragon tipped
Yes.
downturn quillins with the hilt of those previous swords, which is more card like or kyber knife like. But the sword blade is a very old style.
Very, very old style.
I mean, whether it's an old blade or they're just copying an old style, that's a really old style blade.
Yeah.
And it looks quite strong too.
Very
The
strong.
scabbard and the way it's mounted is typical of some of the Bukharan and Samarkandi
Yeah.
swords, where they're meant to hang virtually straight down the leg. This is, I think, and I could be wrong, harking back to old Arab methods of slinging swords, where you often had a ring on either side and on worn
Yeah.
with a baldric. This just looks like a belt, not a baldric.
Yeah. Let me see.
But
Look at this.
oh yeah, look at that. Yeah, see how I noticed they've got a kind of inside that raised area to take the the quilling block in. You see, there's almost a little semicircular area at the very top of that.
Yeah.
You see that in 14th and 15th century Ottoman swords.
Yeah.
There's a piece inside underneath where the langets come down and the
Yeah.
quills are there. That's more or less high. There's a little piece of metal in there that when you fit the sword into the scabbard, it stops it from moving around.
Yes. Okay, let me
And
just
you
show
only,
to our viewers, Pete, this part.
yeah, yeah. So this is a sophisticated part of the design of how to make, because the scabbard is wider than the blade,
Yes.
and therefore you don't want the blade bouncing around in the scabbard. The
Yes.
other thing to notice is the really fine silver work on the hilt and the quilling block as well. That's
Yellow, I
beautifully
guess.
done. It looks like Niela,
Yeah.
um, but it's really good design, isn't it?
Very
So this is amazing stuff.
amazing sword.
There's the scabbard, the metal of the scabbard is gilded, but it's not. I
Yes.
don't think it's as impressive as the work on
I
the
think there
hill.
is a stone in here, right?
It looks like a cabochon cut diamond.
Yes.
If it is, it's a big one.
Big one, yes.
I mean, uh, uh,
These are
cutting
all
diamonds.
these were all presents to Tsar, huh? These are really,
I mean, in which case it probably
you
is a diamond.
know,
Could be rock crystal because rock crystal
could
was
be.
highly regarded too.
Yeah, they are
But yeah,
high
this is
quality items.
spectacular. Oh yeah, spectacular.
You know, I was just thinking if someone goes to war and he's not an important person, let's say he could take them as a booty. Goes to war, he's not going to just survive because everyone tries to attack him and rob him and get rid of
Well,
him.
yeah, there's a famous story about I think it's the Janissaries in Turkey where the system for dividing up booty, you didn't just go off and grab whatever you felt like. You all the booty was collected together and then it was divided equally among well not equally because the sultan got a share and the commander got a share and then everybody else got a share. But they would go to the extent if they had a silver spoon, they would cut it into the appropriate number of pieces to divide it equally among all the soldiers. They weigh it, so I mean, it wouldn't be just the one spoon, but it'd all be weighed out, and you'd all get your share. It was a different system to the kind of devil may care. I've just grabbed this. Well, sometimes you got to keep things if you fought somebody and you killed them and you got their sword or something like that. But general booty, like when you were pillaging a town or if you were, a criminal and robbing a caravan or something,
Yeah.
there was a method for dividing it up. So important people got more, less important people got less, but everybody got a share. That